back to Winning Law. I'm attorney David Nguyen with offices in Houston, Texas. And today we're going to cover a question that we receive quite often, and that is whether or not the government is going to look at your case and make the decision that you have engaged in marriage fraud. Now, every relationship is different, so just because your relationship may have one or two of these things does not necessarily mean that the government is going to assume that it's marriage fraud. The first red flag involves age gaps. If you and your spouse or significant other have a large disparity in your ages and there's a large gap, let's say 10 or more years, most likely the government is going to look at that and may determine that you are in a fraudulent marriage. Again, with all of these red flags, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're definitely going to deny your case. It just means that there is a chance that they're going to take a second look at your case just to make sure that you're not engaged in a fraudulent marriage. The second red flag could be the duration of the relationship. So if you meet someone and you marry them in a very short amount of time after meeting them, the government may consider your case to be a case involving marriage fraud. So in the United States, it's the norm for people to meet someone, date for an extended period of time before asking that person to marry them. I understand that there are a lot of countries, especially countries with arranged marriages, where the courtship is very short in nature. However, if the relationship or the courtship is very short in nature, the government may question the validity of the marriage itself. The next red flag involves work history. If you file a case for your foreign national spouse and only your foreign national spouse is working, the government may believe that you're in some type of financial relationship where you agree to have filed the paperwork and that person agrees to give you a financial benefit. So again, if only one party works or one party works full time, the government may see this as a potential red flag in a marriage fraud case. The fourth red flag involves children. If the foreign national has dependent children and they are minors, and the U.S. citizen spouse or green card holder spouse does not file paperwork for those children, then the government may assume that the marriage is fraudulent or not entered into in good faith. The fifth red flag is how the foreign national entered the United States. If the foreign national entered as an F1 student or a B2 visitor, but they were already in a relationship with their spouse, then the government may question whether or not that foreign national lied on their visa application in order to enter the United States. Remember, if you entered the United States as an F1 student or a B2 visitor, you're telling the government that you only want to stay temporarily. So if you are in a relationship that later developed into a marriage, the government may assume that you engaged in visa fraud or otherwise entering the country, telling the government that you're only going to stay temporarily, but really intending to stay permanently. The sixth red flag is very similar to the last one. So instead of actually entering the United States, the foreign national applies for a visitor visa or an F1 student visa, it gets denied, and immediately their significant other files a marriage-based petition for them. So in this situation, the government can also assume that the foreign national tried to engage in visa fraud. Just because they didn't enter the US doesn't mean that their denied application is just going to be overlooked. The seventh red flag involves not living together and living apart. So if you are married, the government does expect both parties to live together under one roof. However, we understand that all relationships are different, and sometimes couples break up temporarily and then eventually get back together. However, these little breaks will cause USCIS to assume that the marriage may be fraudulent. The eighth red flag involves work. If one party works out of the city, out of the state, out of the country, the government may look at this and determine that the marriage was not entered in good faith since the couple is not really together most of the time. The ninth red flag involves joint checking accounts. So there are many couples that like having separate checking accounts, but for immigration purposes, the government doesn't like this. They want couples to show that they are commingling their funds and their assets. So if the parties do not actively use their joint checking account, this could be a sign that the marriage was not entered in good faith. The 10th red flag involves criminal history. If the couple has a criminal history and they do not openly discuss it with one another, it could lead immigration to doubt the validity of their marriage. I understand that many spouses, they don't want to share their history or their criminal history with someone that they're currently married to or currently dating. However, for immigration purposes, the officers can bring this up, and if the other party has no idea what they're talking about, it could lead them to make a decision that the marriage was entered into in bad faith. The 11th red flag involves prior marriages. For the foreign national, if you've been married before, the government is going to wonder whether or not you have a secret relationship with your ex-husband or your ex-wife. And for U.S. citizen and green card holder spouses, if you've been divorced before, the government may wonder whether or not you're serious about your current spouse or fiance. So in both situations, the government is going to look at your marriages and your prior divorces to make a determination of whether or not they believe that was entered in good faith. The 12th red flag involves joint health insurance. If one party goes to work and they have health insurance, the government is going to wonder why the other party is not on their health insurance plan. This includes any minor and dependent children. So again, if you have health insurance, make sure that your spouse or significant other also has the same health insurance. The 13th possible red flag involves prior filings. If you are a foreign national and another individual has previously submitted a petition for you, either a spouse or fiancé petition, the government may doubt any future petitions or applications that you submit thereafter with someone else. Additionally, if you are a U.S. citizen or green card holder and you previously filed petitions, let's say you filed 2 fiancé petitions and they never worked out after the individual came to the U.S., the government may doubt whether or not your third petition is valid and real. The 14th red flag that immigration may notice is mistakes on the forms. So if you're filling out the forms, make sure that you answer every and each question carefully. What I see a lot is that one person will fill out the forms, they will assume certain information about the other party, and there will be a lot of blanks or mistakes on the form. So remember, you want both parties to fill out all forms to make sure that all the information is correct. When there are holes and gaps in the questionnaire, most likely the government is going to doubt your relationship. The 15th red flag involves a shared email or phone number. So if you're in a relationship, most likely both individuals have different phone numbers and different email addresses. So when the parties indicate on the forms that they have the same email or phone number, it's a red flag. The 16th red flag involves the type of document submitted as evidence in your petition or application. So if one party submits very crystal clear documents, they're all colored, they're nice, they're nicely cropped, and the other party submits very grainy pictures, black and white photos, black and white documents, the government may wonder whether or not the couple was together when they were submitting these documents, and that could also be a red flag. The 17th red flag involves lack of documents. So when you're filing a petition for your fiancé or a marriage, you have to prove the marriage was entered into in good faith or the relationship was entered into without wanting just immigration benefits. So if you submit just a few documents, most likely the government's not going to believe that your marriage was entered into in good faith. The 19th red flag involves traveling. If one party travels and the other party does not travel, the government may wonder whether or not the relationship is real because usually couples do tend to travel together. This is especially true for international trips. So I've seen a lot of excuses in my day. I've seen people mention that they weren't able to travel because they could only afford one ticket. They could not travel because they could not get off work. Honestly, I don't think there's a good excuse for not traveling together, especially if it's international. So if you have international trips or you even have domestic trips and you're not traveling with your significant other, let's say, for example, you went on a bachelor or bachelorette party, it's going to look really bad and maybe a red flag for immigration purposes. The last red flag involves family or friend acknowledgement. If one party is introducing the other party to all their friends and their family members, and the other party has not introduced the other person to any of their friends or family members, this could be a red flag. I've seen this a lot with people that have different religions. Maybe they don't want their family to know that they're in a relationship with someone that doesn't share their culture or their religion. or couples that are in same-sex relationships and they are uncomfortable or they're not open to their friends and family members. In these situations, you may want to get an attorney because establishing that relationship and making sure that the government knows that it's real may be harder than couples that are open about their relationship. And you might be wondering, how does the government know whether or not a person has been open about the relationship to their friends and family members? It's very easy. The government can go over, knock on your door, and speak with your neighbors. They can also just call your neighbors, your parents, and ask about your relationship. They can also call your employer if they wanted to. They can also look at your social media profiles to see if you indicated that you're in a relationship with this other person. So there's many things that the government can do in order to investigate your marriage. So these are just 20 red flags that immigration may look at when making a determination on whether or not a marriage was entered into in bad faith or marriage fraud exists. Again, thank you for watching Winning Law. I'm attorney David Nguyen, and we hope that we have made immigration easier to understand.
At David Nguyen's Law Office, we are here to help you. We bring families together through immigration. And on the other hand, we help you find solutions. All your legal needs in the hands of people who care, who are there for you. We'll take care of your loved ones at the Law Office of David.